The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Greetings, Earthlings, space aliens, illegal aliens, undocumented workers, union twerkers, and the rest of humanity. Welcome to the only hour that causes chronic brain cell rejuvenation, where 60 minutes of exposure has more benefits than a Snickers bar. Clinically proven by the Banger Institute for Critical Thinking as a healthy alternative to the malpractice media, endorsed by people who know best, although their identities are hidden for their protection because, well, the uncurable brainwashed and the intelligently suppressed are out to get them. I'm your host, John Lebang. Thank you for joining me. Well, we have a great night before you because Frank Salvato will be joining us. He's from Underground USA, and he'll be here in just a few minutes. And we have a little time before he gets here, so we thought we'd go out to the phones to hear what you have to say because you guys were ready to go at the beginning here. So let's begin. Boris from Moscow, Michigan. Let's hear what you got to say.
Hello, many time call.
Welcome back to the show.
I've been looking for masks because I don't want to catch the virus, but everybody is sold out.
Yeah, and even the Surgeon General is telling everybody don't buy them because they need them.
They don't care at all if we catch it.
Yeah, you would think that's probably the reason. They don't want their guys getting it, and it's just better that we get it.
I don't want to catch because if I do, my wife will put my schmeckle on quarantine.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, but thanks for your call. Up next, we have a call coming in from Washington, D.C., and the Donald.
Don't panic, John. Don't panic. I've got it all under control, John.
I'm not panicking, sir. I'm just reporting what's going on.
I've got the greatest people handling it, John.
But how do you know you can trust them? Can you trust anybody right now?
We're going to throw money at it, like I did with Stormy.
That didn't work out that greatly for you, sir.
If we have to, we'll handle it like the VD epidemic of the 60s.
And how's that?
Yeah, that's easy. Blue ointment and rubbers, John. Now I gotta go.
Oh, you got a big meeting or something?
No, something more important. I'm feeling the toilet tweet coming on. Bye.
Okay, sir. Thanks for your call. Our next call comes in from Detroit, listening in on Alien X Radio. Shady, what say you?
Hey, John, I'd like to change the subject if I could.
Yeah, sure, go right ahead.
Did you see that story where them sex robots were abusing people who were having sex with them?
Yeah, that was in a news story. I guess they're malfunctioning. Something's going wrong with their AI or something, and they're actually abusing the people they're having sex with.
That's why I'm old-fashioned, John. I like having sex with women. I mean, I would have sex with women if there was a woman to have sex with. Currently, I'm just doing the Star Wars position. Han Solo.
TMI, and thanks for your call. Our next call comes in from Bernie, over there in South Carolina. Bernie, what say you?
We're making socialism great again!
But Grandpa Joe just won in South Carolina, so obviously you're not getting through to everybody.
They just need a re-education!
Re-education. Well, that's probably it. Okay, thanks for your call. Our next call goes out to Peppa in Chicago. What say you?
Do you know where I can get one of them sex robots? I'm tired of having children's.
Maybe mail order.
Aw, damn!
Thanks for your call. Our last call coming in from Pedro in Los Angeles.
I caught the virus, man. Adios, amigo.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. I know it's early, but we got a lot to talk about with Frank, and he'll be here Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going? Hey, you, get back here. The John Lebang Show will be right back. Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass. You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's better than an iRater convention.
Mr. Frank Salvato of Underground USA. Frank, welcome back.
Thanks. It's good to be back on. It's the show, such as it is, a wonderful mix of entertainment and information.
Well, I appreciate that. There's so much going on, my friend, since we last talked. It's going to be hard to get it all in, but I thought we'd talk about the coronavirus.
Yeah, there's a lot of explosive talk out there about this, as if it's brand new and we've never seen it before. This is a variation off the SARS virus. As a matter of fact, the technical name for it is SARS-CoV-2. So we have seen this kind of a virus before. It's just a different strain. But the hype that it's getting, I mean, the survival rate on this is well into 97%, which is much better than the regular flu strain. You know, we've already had, I believe, 1,400 people die this season because of the flu. And now we've got headlines and breaking news because one person died from this virus in Washington State.
Well, let me play devil's advocate if I can. We are getting reports, and the reports are coming from China, so it's not like they're the most credible source out there. So the numbers that they are giving us could be a little skewed.
Oh, of course, and we also have to remember that as big as our nation is, their nation is almost 4 times the size of ours as far as population is concerned. You know, when you're talking over 1 billion people in congested urban areas, there, the whole transmission thing takes on a different definition. You know, where we've got Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and Miami, even some of their suburban getting on rural locations over in China are heavily populated. So the way it spreads is a lot different over there. They also don't have the types of containment actions that we do over here on a daily basis. You know, if we go into a McDonald's and there's a dirty table, we kind of get our nose out of joint. Over there, they don't necessarily care. So there's a whole different way they go about public health in China as juxtaposed to here.
But as I continue with my devil's advocate, they don't round up lots of people just over a normal cold virus. And that's what they've been doing. We've seen the videos.
Well, this isn't a normal cold virus. This is a SARS virus. It's upper respiratory and it's contagious. But if we use the health recommendations that we've had just for the regular flu, wash your hands, don't touch your eyes, nose, and your mouth after you've been out in the public before you wash your hands, clean off your flat surfaces the way you should during the nasty cold and flu season, the chances of you coming down with this are are very slim. Well, and then even then, it's very slim that you're going to die from it. When you listen to CNN or MSNBC or any of the usual suspect media outlets, it's like you better not go out of your home.
Well, that's the problem with it all, is they're politicizing something that could be a bit of a health risk to the people, because even WHO is saying that maybe 60% of the people on the planet up to 60% could get infected.
Well, yeah, but they also have to take into consideration areas like the entire continent of Africa, where you don't have the health protocols that we do here in the United States, and that's why you have to look at the source from this information. The World Health Organization, their demographic is global. When we're looking at the CDC here, and aside from the one person who came out who said it's going to disrupt your daily life, and by the way, and this is an aside, and I'm not saying that she did it for political reasons, but it certainly stinks of that.
Are you talking about Rosenthal's sister?
Rosenstein's sister.
Rosenstein,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's incredible that she came out with the quote that she had about it interrupting daily life here in the United States because it's that contagious and that monumental. Yet the director of immunization and over there comes out and says, just use good hygiene and the protocol for flu season, and it's contained. I mean, the last interview that she had said it's fairly much contained. So that's where my eyebrow went up with this whole coronavirus thing. Is it a virus? Yes. Are people dying because of it? Yes, in some locations. We don't know if this person in Washington State was geriatric, just like any other flu.
Well, according to the president, she was upper 50s and she did have health issues. And that's probably going to be the people who really fall prey to this in the States will be elderly people who have health issues, and maybe extremely young kids that their immune system isn't up all the way. But you're right, an average American, because we have a pretty good health system, should be able to get through this. My biggest concern is the supply chain, and as we've seen throughout the week, the stock market has taken a hit primarily because of the supply chain.
Absolutely, and just before I get into that, I want to point out here that globally, 75,000 people have been hospitalized for this. There's only 2,000 deaths. And if you're between the ages of 10 and 39, the mortality rate is 0.2%. And nobody under 9 years of age has died of this virus to date. So when you look at the people who are expiring because of this virus, they either had health issues or they're advanced in age.
Well, they talked about a secondary disease contributing to some of the deaths. If you listen to the CDC's press conference the other day. So it's probably, and this is what I talked about on my last show, it's probably the secondary disease that's adding and taking the people out. So as long as you're pretty healthy, you should be able to withstand it.
Yeah, and this is when we talk about HIV/AIDS, that's the same thing. It's not a fatal disease. What people end up dying from is pneumonia and upper respiratory problems because of the immune problem that HIV presents for the person who has it. So that could be a factor here. But when you're looking at the survival rate and the mortality rate of the SARS-CoV-2, it's being blown out of proportion. And that brings us to the economy and the supply chain. President Trump has done a very good job of trying to enable the United States indigenously to continue its economic success indigenously. We do have trade with Canada, with Mexico, our two biggest trade partners. We do have trade with China and Japan and Europe, but increasingly we're starting to be able to build things here, and our farmers increasingly are feeding our own people here instead of depending on the globalization that was happening under Clinton and under Obama. So, yeah, we've got some problems with things coming into the country as far as the supply chain is concerned, but we will survive on that. What's bothering me is the knee-jerk stock market. And this is where both of my eyebrows went up, John. You've got a Trump economy. You've got and I'm gonna go a little bit more exact on that. You have a capitalist economy happening here today, where regulations are being decreased and free market is being allowed to thrive. And we see the stock market hitting all-time highs before this happened. Unemployment is down. Minority home ownership is up. People have disposable income. Consumer confidence is up. And all of a sudden, we have this thing that throws chaos into the economic system because the stock market and Wall Street are spineless knee-jerk people.
Let's play off that for just a minute, because Rush Limbaugh he's been talking about this for maybe the whole week. He thinks the media is hyping this to damage the economy, to hurt Trump, because there's really nothing else they can attack. I mean, I'm not quoting him exactly, but I think that's where he's going, is he thinks they're trying to find this next thing to damage Trump because they have nothing else, and they can use this virus and the supply chain as cause for attacking him. But he shuts down some of the travel. It wasn't a whole lot, but he did, and he gets criticized for it by the left. And this is where I was saying this is all being politicized, but then he's not doing enough, on the other hand, from the same people.
Yeah, and if you listen to people like Kochevar, who's running for president on the Democratic side, he's damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't. And I tend to agree with Limbaugh on this. I think they're using this as a political weapon because they needed to have a wrench thrown into the economic success that's been happening since Trump took office. There is no arguing that the economy is better. There is no arguing that unemployment is down, or that consumer confidence is up, or that homeownership is up. All the good things that emanate from a strong economy are happening, and that's because of what he's done. So when you look at the average voter, and the average voter is motivated to the polls, either emotionally or financially, and that's the overwhelming majority. There are other people who are special interest, special issue people, but if you can motivate a demographic emotionally or financially to get to the polls, that's what happens. Well, it's the economy, stupid, in reverse. You've got a thriving economy. People don't necessarily want to see the change happen that these people need to be screaming. That they're running on an economic idea of let's all throw it into the pot, and nobody gets rich, but nobody's poor. Socialism garbage.
We know both in socialism, there's a lot of poor in socialism.
Oh, everybody's poor except for the elite in socialism. The elite drive around in the limousines. The elite have the guards with the weapons. Everybody in socialism who isn't in the elite, who isn't in the oligarchy, they're the peasants, and that's, we go back to serfdom. But they needed to have this economic chaos to where the stock market's coming down from the all-time high as a talking point going into November. The economy is vulnerable. One virus and the economy can tank. It's fragile. There's no foundation for this economy. And all of a sudden you heard Obama, who was crowing about the economy, trying to take credit for it not 10 days ago. Suddenly it's crickets from him.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with Limbaugh. They're overhyping this. I'm not saying that the virus isn't something we have to pay attention to. We do. It's like a supercharged bad flu. So take precautions, wash your hands, follow the recommendations about good hygiene, and we all should be fine. The Zika virus. What happened with that? We can go back into the different viruses. It's almost perennial, where there's a new virus where we've got to have this. There could be a pandemic. There's an epidemic. It's hopping from continent to continent. You can go back and replace the name of the virus, and it's the same news report. But this year, they needed to chink up the economy, so it's getting super hyped because they need Trump's economy to be fragile.
Well,
so I agree with them.
I'm going to take it a step further. I'm a little more precautionary than I will say you are in this whole thing, and I think the media jumped on the reporting of myself and other people. I'm not saying just myself, but we were actually in front of this coronavirus before it made the big headlines. And I think they picked up on it because they were like, this is all there is to damage Trump with. And I wasn't reporting on it to damage Trump. I was just saying, hey, we got to watch out for this. There's been some reporting on this virus, Frank, and I don't know how in depth you're on this subject, but that it came from the lab in Wuhan, and it's a man-made version of a virus. Now, if that's the case, maybe that's why it's spreading. Maybe that's why China was trying to contain it so quickly. Again, we're dealing with China's numbers, and so I mean, we have to take all that with a grain of salt. So I think the media it picked up on this because there was a group in the alternative media that was aware of it beforehand, or they were reporting it more frequently than the mainstream media, and they were like, okay, we can jump on it. So
they sensationalize everything. Number one, because all of the numbers for especially cable news, except for Fox, they're plummeting because they parrot the same lines. It's put your hand up this sock puppet and just change the microphone placard. It's the same noise coming from all those different channels. That said, we've got reports of the one woman from the Chinese military being a student at Harvard, going back to Wuhan, and then the outbreak happened there. So man-made, it's a very good possibility, considering what Wuhan is famous for as far as the Chinese military is concerned. And then you'll notice this coincides with Defense Department's press releases about the new Dazzler laser that's going on all of our on the ships, the new ships that we have. That it's advanced laser technology that can take out drones, and that's being adapted to be able to take out missiles, both land-based and sea-based. So when you're a foe's military and you're looking at the advances we're making in technology that could make missiles obsolete, and that takes the big boy out of the room when it comes to nuclear weapons, land-based, short and long-range missiles. When you see that kind of capability becoming obsolete on your end, you have to start looking at the most cost-effective weaponry that you can produce. And the only counter to making nuclear weapons and long and short range missiles obsolete is biochemical and biological weapons.
Sure.
So, could they have been over there saying we've got to get ahead of this because we know, China's been spying on our defense since before I think I was even born. So they're well aware of what we've been developing over here. Does it scare them? If I'm them, I'm saying yes. So, treaties be damned. When it comes to survival, Hitler signed a lot of treaties. What Chamberlain was a big one. Didn't mean that it wasn't worth the paper it was written on. So.
Right, I agree with you.
Don't move a muscle. The John Lebang Show, right back.
With lots of fun and excitement, yes!
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is your one-stop shop for tuxedos and men's quality suits. We go the extra mile to make sure your tux or suit is the perfect fit. Our huge selection is second to none in the state.
Looking good.
Outstanding customer service.
And we're located on Dix Toledo in Southgate. Call today, 734-285-3253.
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is the place to be.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to Jim's Tuxedos and Menswear.
You know I had to come to the best.
That's right.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
We're speaking with Frank Salvato of Underground USA. Because I was very opposed to the trip to India, but maybe that's what Trump's going down there to do, is set up India to be an alternative to China. They have a very equivalent workforce.
Yeah, we have to go back a couple administrations to look at the genesis of our relationship with our modern day relationship with India. George W. Bush was the one who reached out to India as a counter to China. You look at the workforces, but you're also looking at population and military location. proximity. So you've got 1 billion people in China. You've got 1 billion people in India. You also have India in the region where Pakistan and Afghanistan is. So our relationship with India, aside from commerce, is one of strategic partnership when it comes to military balance. And India certainly provides a balance to the 1 billion people in China.
And we were making a pivot towards the Asian, I don't want to call it market, but the Asian field there during the Obama administration as well. Mm-hmm. So we were already planning on making the shift to the Asian, and maybe all this is just a continuation of all that.
Well, it certainly expands upon that Asian sphere that the Obama administration was concentrating on, because they were focusing mostly on China, Malaysia, that type of that sphere over there when they were talking about expanding trade. We're saying, hey, don't forget about the westernized countries over there, namely India. Because you get when you start talking about a labor force, economic-wise, India's a powerhouse.
Yep.
Just like the Chinese, where their wages are depressed, India's wages are depressed, and when you get into the global world market, that becomes an affordable workforce for developing companies. Or existing corporations that are weighed down by regulations that haven't been loosened up yet. So, yeah, it could be an expansion of the Asian sphere, but, you look at the Trump administration, they like to make individual deals with individual entities. They're not into this globalization, this mass one-stop shop globalization effort that the progressives have been involved with.
Right, it's a more piecemeal treaty with each country versus a conglomeration of countries.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely for that, because this whole let's go globalized and we'll all sit down at the table lends itself to allowing the UN to have control, or a global government, and I am absolutely against that on every level with every fiber of my being. So the individual treaties, the individual trade pacts, is a little bit more work, yeah, but it titrates our needs to what we trade, and it protects the people here at home who happen to be people who have developed the processes and products and wares that we sell over here.
You were talking before the show that you wanted to get in a little conversation going about the social media echo chambers. That's kind of a carryover to what they're talking about with the coronavirus and how people pass information along, right?
Yeah, the one thing that's happened, we keep talking about how divided our country is politically and ideologically. Well, social media, as wonderful it is to be able to keep track of family and friends and reunite with family and friends, it is the premier vehicle for the divide in this country. Because we have gotten into this mindset that everything we put on social media is so important, we forgot to read other people's stuff. So there's a giant group of people here, and this gets into the echo chamber. There's a giant group of people here that are believing they understand what other people are saying. They believe they've consumed information and they're forming opinions on it that aren't based in anything that's of weight. They dismiss fact for emotion. They dismiss truth for what they want the truth to be. And you start seeing people unfriend people for this and unfriend people for that. So we get pulled back into these echo chambers, and Facebook is notorious for it. It's the groups, and I'm guilty of it too. Yeah, to a certain extent. I like to try to keep my fingers in the places that I wouldn't necessarily go, so I can understand what other people are saying and why. But you can fall into a habit of not listening and just sitting in your own group, which becomes this circular echo chamber. And so we put out what we want to put out, the information that we believe is important, but it goes to the same group of people who consume it over and over and over again, and we get caught inside this bubble, and we're not interacting with unlike-minded people in order to actually have that debate that we want to have. and Facebook facilitates this by pushing people into the groups.
But
they are segregating people.
I don't think people want to debate. I think they want to impose their opinion on you.
Oh, there's a good group of people who believe they know best, and you're going to listen. You know, especially in local politics here in the Panhandle of Florida and the county I'm in now, there are some political races where you've got people who know zero about political campaigning and zero about the facts, but for the headlines they've read.
Well, that's where I was going to point you to, because it's the malpractice media. They know that the average human being, the average American, is lazy and apathetic, and they're gonna get all their information in that headline, and they're not going to read 3, 4, 5 paragraphs down into a story. So the malpractice media takes advantage of that, gives you a perspective in that headline. And they may get to the truth eventually, but it's well beyond the point that 80% of Americans are going to read through.
Yeah, there was a meme that I saw, and that's another thing. You can meme overload in about 4 seconds on Facebook to the point where you just want to blow your brains out. There was one that actually had some thought behind it, that had President Bush saying he shot an eagle on the 9th hole of the golf course, and then it had Wolf Blitzer there, I believe, at the bottom saying President Bush shot 9 eagles on the golf course.
Right.
You know, so they do exactly what you just said. They manipulate the headline to make it sound about the most sensationalistic it can, in the vein they want it to be, and you have to get to the 3rd paragraph to actually find out that's not what was said, that's not what was done. You know, but this is how and I love your term, the malpractice media. This is how they sensationalize headlines in order to get people to click, because they need the revenue. They're dying.
And they are notorious in doing this for science news, like for a space distant planet thing or whatever. They will tell you aliens are in the headlines, or UFOs, or radio signals from another planet, and then you get in there and you find out it's a natural phenomenon, it's nothing, it's a bunch of hogwash. It infuriates me.
Oh yeah, and when you realize that 68% of Americans get their news from social media, and social media blows up those headlines, this is why we've got an uninformed populace that believes they know, though. You know, right. It's that's the problem here. I wouldn't care about sensationalistic headlines and fictional reporting, as it were, if people would read beyond the 3rd paragraph to find out the whole story. But that's not happening today, because we immediately have to believe we know what the truth is just by reading that headline. That's the instant gratification society that we've become a part of. Slowing down, finding out the facts. You know, three source story. That used to be the journalistic standard. You have to have at least 3 sources before you can go with a story. Today it's how fast can I get that story out? If it's wrong, we'll just spin it afterwards however we have to.
Nobody's going to care to look at if you retracted it anyways.
Yeah, they don't care. The damage is already done, and we see that on the political stage every day. When you look at the campaigns, especially the Twitter campaigns of these Democrat candidates, and as an aside, I say Democrat candidates. I don't say Democratic, because there's nothing democratic about the Democrats.
Not after the impeachment. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
The news, the malpractice media. Adam Schiff, the whole impeachment. They lied the whole time during the impeachment. They took the sound bites, and I did so much reporting on that. And you know what got me the most? It was actually during the impeachment. We had that little story that came out that the 2 FISA warrants that were falsified. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And that came out during the impeachment. I posted from our favorite news source, CNN, so that way the people on the left would believe it, right? They didn't believe it at all. From their own news source.
this is where we talked about that briefly just a couple minutes ago. They need to believe what they want to believe to be true. The facts be damned, the truth be damned. They believe, and this is the touchy-feely, emotional, politically correct, progressive crap that has now festered into our society to become a fiber of what we are. We need to be right. Everything is great. We're all winners. Everybody gets a trophy. You're never wrong. You're a victim. Well, you know what? That means that I could tell you that it's midnight at noon, and if I believe I'm right and I feel I'm right, then I have to be right. But that's not the way the truth works. You can't have your own truth.
A lot of people do have their own truth, unfortunately, and it doesn't coincide with the actual truth.
Well, and that's where we live today. That's why the Democrats can get on the stage and tweet and declare some of the things that they want to declare because they feel like they should, or they can, or they have a right to say it, even if it's not true. And the shrewd on the progressive left routinely recreate the narrative with the truth that they want to present, even if it's a blatant lie, because they know the attention span will wane in about 13 seconds and they can move away from the lie they've perpetrated. It's all about slash and burn politics to sensationalize things and throw instability into the truth where it's concerned, and it favors their opponents. It's deception. And really, I don't think anything short of an ideological revolution is going to change that in this country. Might even come down to an economic revolution between states, where states' rights actually start to increase over federal rights. Nullification is my new favorite word.
I would be all for states taking back a lot of their power.
Smoke them if you got them.
Because the John Lebang Show will be right back
after this.
That's guaranteed. Yes. Absolute Skin and Body Care, located in Livonia, Michigan. If you're in need of laser hair removal, skin care, laser tattoo removal, or laser hair regrowth, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Their phone number is 248-533-0448. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Give them a call. You're listening to the John Lebang Show. It's huge. Now I got to tweet about it. I would like to see the senators go back to the way we used to send them up there instead of by national vote again. Because I don't like the idea of that. Because you're not beholden to your state as much as you would be if the state representatives picked you.
We moved away from the model that our framers bequeathed us when two things did this. The Supreme Court decision on the Commerce Clause that gave the federal government way more power over the states than they should have, and the direct election of senators. When the progressives, and it was a progressive movement that got the direct election of senators passed into a constitutional law. When they did that, they essentially erased the state's abilities to determine their own destiny.
They pretty much made us dual citizens, too. We were the citizen of our state until that point, and then we became citizens of the federal government after that.
Absolutely.
The 14th Amendment is, to me, the amendment they gotta abolish it and come up with something better if we want to term limit the president, because they squeezed all that into one amendment.
There's a lot of things that have to be revisited when it comes to that, and this is one of the reasons the framers made amending the Constitution so hard. But things can be repealed. We saw it with prohibition. Make the argument, and we need to be a cohesive society to do that. The left understands that they can push societal change through mechanisms like political correctness. The people who believe in the Constitution have to rely on that process and execute it with fidelity, and we can get things back to good. It's not going to happen in my lifetime. but the future could look back on this and go back towards constitutionality. Now, a perfect example for somebody who's kind of maybe not getting it, Obamacare. If the senators had more fidelity to the states because they were appointed by the state legislatures, they never would have allowed the politics of national politics to run their decisions on Obamacare in the Senate, because the Senate was the chamber that protected the well-being of the states. The two senators from Illinois would have gone, boy, that's going to cost Illinois a ton of money. We are absolutely not voting for this. But instead, with the direct election of senators, we allowed the political parties to usurp the authority of the citizens and usurp the authority of the states, because now the senators were beholden to the national political parties for elections.
Yep.
If the senators weren't elected and they were appointed, the senators in Washington who would have said, yeah, Obamacare is going to be great for California, California could have called them back and said, we're removing you because that's our purview.
And talk about taking some of the money out of politics. Right there, you would remove the money out of politics at least for the Senate.
Absolutely. And that, because congressional districts are what they are, the national parties still wouldn't be as powerful as they are today, because there's too many races.
Yep.
There's too many races. When you're looking at 100 senatorial races across the country, political parties can get in there and manipulate it and distort things.
Right. You can move somebody into a neighborhood into New York, and she can become, she can get elected.
Yeah. That's
another thing. How can you just move into a district so you can get elected? Why hasn't that been solved by now?
Well, we kind of looked the other way in the United States after the Civil War with carpetbaggers, because we have reconstruction of what was happening down south. Doesn't make it right, but we looked the other way. I'm not a fan of at-large elections and local politics either. I believe people who live in a district should vote for their people in their district and send them to represent them. But this is self-determination. But again, when you're looking at things that are manufactured for the states, when the state doesn't have a right of its own self-determination on a national level, and who they associate with and how their tax dollars are spent, then the federal government is giving them mandate upon unfunded mandate. What is their constitution worth?
Not very much.
Yeah, we have 50 separate states here that joined together to create a federation of states in a federal government, and the federal government found a way to neuter their rights just by getting senators directly elected and by overstepping with a commerce clause that was ruled upon by a federal court body. So they stole the power from the states and made their constitutions pretty much tantamount to garbage.
Exactly. The United States, these United States, is really a mutual defense pact. Don't you agree?
It's supposed to be, and one of the things that I've been chiming on, and people look at me a little quizzical when I bring this up, but it's something that I believe is the only way to get back the good in this country, is for the states to take back the control that they want to. How does the federal government penalize a state when the state says we're not going to follow your mandate? They withhold federal funds. So if I'm a state legislature with intestinal fortitude, and there's not a lot of those around here,
right?
Just a few states, I say let's make it a state felony for any individual to remit their tax dollars, their federal tax dollars, directly to the federal government. They have to come through the state house, and we will give the federal government what is constitutionally mandated and keep the rest of the federal dollars for the federal programs that they're mandating that we do. We're not going to break the law. We're just not going to give you the money so you can give it back to us.
Right, so it doesn't have time to get laundered through all the administration there.
Right. So you're starving the beast. You're just starving the beast, and you're keeping that monetary power here. So when you scream nullification on something, they can't penalize you monetarily. Well, then your roads, like, we've got the money to pay for our roads now. We've got the money to pay for this. We got the money to pay for this. We can because you're not bleeding us dry. We can take care of our own people. As a matter of fact, we're going to nullify the Commerce Clause, and Florida is going to enter into trade negotiations so that we can have a trade pact with Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. We've got shipping lanes, we've got interstates that will all sit there and take care of ourselves. And all of a sudden, the economic pacts between the states start to help the states' economies because they're trading with the other states instead of other countries based on a national federal treaty. All of a sudden, the federal government doesn't have a lot of power.
True, but some would argue that that's what the Constitution is.
Absolutely. That's constitutionality. Getting back to constitutionality requires the states to stand up and say, nullification. We're not going to simply. The way to make this come about is to let your people in your state know that they don't pay the federal government anymore. The states pay the federal government.
Right. That would be a chain of command type thing.
You bet.
Yeah. It would be.
The federal government cannot say that the people of Florida didn't pay their federal taxes because they did. It's filed. The money just had to go to the state first. The state says, well, you know what? This program, yeah, we're going to apply our tax dollars here in California. Our tax dollars that would normally go over to Washington are going to stay here for Medicaid. They're going to stay here for Medicare. They're going to stay here for this federal program. Now, all of a sudden, when a state can't, they have to prioritize their budget.
That's too much work.
So you're getting into fiscal responsibility. You're getting into balanced budget stuff. You're getting into having, if I don't want to live in California where I have to have a wind turbine on top of my house and I have to put a sign up in space that says "Aliens Welcome," and I want to move to Texas and wear a sidearm, I can move to the state that I want to live in that has the culture that I want to be a part of.
Oh, that would be racist. Come on.
Yeah. I suppose that Texan is a race, but this is the way it was before the federal government got bloated and bureaucratic. If you crossed a state line, you were under a different set of rules, and the federal rules were very broad and general. Right. Today, the state laws don't matter or anything. It's just an extra charge if you get caught on a federal charge, or if the feds don't have a law on the books for it yet, and wait 5 minutes, and there will be one.
But the beginning of all that bloating, in my opinion, started back with Woodrow Wilson and the Federal Reserve Act and everything that came from that, and then that's what put us on. And unfortunately, I have to agree with Bernie because he just did an interview. He said, what did he say? He said, on some level, we are a socialist country now, and Social Security, Obamacare, those programs are kind of socialist, folks. And the point I was making is we've spent over 100 years now bloating the government. It's going to take at least that to turn it around.
Oh, absolutely. And to specifically focus in on Social Security, the original construct for Social Security was to create for one generation this safety net, and then to turn it into an annuity that you owned. Not the government owned, that you owned. This way the government could never borrow against it. The reason Social Security is broke is because the federal government borrows against it and deficit spends.
Thank you, Bill Clinton.
Yeah. So when you go back to the beginning of Social Security under FDR, he wanted this to be a personally held annuity after one generation because they needed that transition to be able to fund it so that he could give it back.
Yep. Laundered.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're talking about the big three, everybody wanted to sing praises for Alexander Hamilton, but he was the big push behind the federal banks, which started that whole federal system. Yes, we needed a currency, but that's where it all started. And then you have Wilson, and you have FDR, and in our modern age, you got Obama. And yes, we live in a quasi-socialist country now, and they're just trying to bring it across the finish line. We've got to push back, and the way to get away from this is returning power to the states.
Exactly. Let's hit a couple other topics while we have a few minutes left. We have an upcoming Durham report. Do you think anything is going to come of this, or do you think it's just going to turn out like McCabe did in the last report?
Well, I'll tell you, if nothing comes of the Durham report and we don't see a litany of prosecutions for the crimes that have been committed against the American people, dating all the way back to the Clinton administration, then it is no longer a question. It is a fact that we live in a two-tiered judicial system where the connected and the oligarchic have a different set of rules that they have to play by than everybody else in this country. We need to see some prosecutions on this, and we need to see some high-profile people going to jail over this. No one should be untouchable. But if it's just a lot of noise and there are no prosecutions and everybody cuts a deal, we're in a world of hurt. It's just one more nail in the coffin.
But doesn't that hurt Trump's credibility? Because
absolutely.
He's put all this effort into protecting himself and saying he's gonna fight back. And if nobody goes to jail, and I'm not talking Strzok and Page, we've got to get some of these big guys and completely clean out the FBI, because it was a month ago he was saying there's. Most of the FBI is good. I don't believe that for a moment, bro.
I believe that the boots on the ground agents who actually go out and do the work are good people, and they are trying to protect the citizenry. I believe when you start getting into the desks in Washington and at the major urban bureaus, there is a political air in these offices that needs to be expunged. And I would have loved for President Trump immediately after the inauguration to say, you know what, I'm going to be a little late to the ball because I need to stop by the Justice Department and the State Department and accept a boatload of resignations.
It took him 3 years to get rid of the people inside his own White House, though, the holdovers.
Yeah, and this is where Republicans usually screw up. Democrats do not screw up like that. When Democrats come in, they say thank you for your service, goodbye, and they change the guard. Republicans get shamed into, and we hear it every election cycle when a president wins. Well, if he wants to reach out to the other side, he'll have diversity in his cabinet.
But we're supposed to believe Trump is not the linguini spine the rest of those Republicans are. And here, he didn't get rid of anybody. Now, I mean, that was the cause for the impeachment, because he left these people in there.
Absolutely. Aside from Rubbernecker Schiff, so you've got all these politicians, and everybody believes they can run for office today too, which is another problem.
What, like Queso-Cortez?
yeah, like Bean Dip Cortez. It's where there is no science to it. It's how I feel. We've gotten away from truth and we've invested in feeling, and that's not good on any level in any subject for any demographic anywhere. Truth has to be truth, and facts have to be facts. That's how you build a strong society with a strong moral and ethical nature. Today we don't have that.
I don't think we want it, unfortunately, or there's a good portion of the country that isn't moral.
Well, it's too easy not to be moral, and that started with "if it feels good, do it" generation of the late '60s. Yeah. Which was steered, by a communist and socialist influence. If people need to read their history a little bit, the Russians and the Chinese had a lot to do with the 60s and the 70s movement that happened over here culturally.
Speaking of, I'm going to put you on the spot as we're closing out here. I'm putting you on the spot. Democrat candidate versus Trump.
I believe Trump wins, and I'll tell you what's going to be the kicker on whether it's a landslide or not. If these indictments come down from the Durham report, and there is a full-blown litany of arrests. And if you get to see Hillary Clinton taken into custody, he wins in a landslide that makes Reagan's look like a close call.
Yeah, but who do you think's going to be there? Who's winning on the Democrat side?
Boy, if they go to, and this is what I think Bloomberg is doing, but I think Bloomberg is throwing money at this to throw a wrench in the machine so they can get through 3 ballots and get to a brokered convention so someone who is not on that platform today can be the nominee.
Hillary.
Well, either her or Michelle Obama.
Oh, boy. Because she has been talked about.
Mm-hmm. But so this is what we're looking at. We're looking. It's such a pathetic lineup of people.
They're going to steal it from Bernie again, aren't they?
Absolutely.
It's unfortunate.
Absolutely.
Because I'd have too much fun with the Bernie Trump. Because I do both their voices. I could have my own debate. It'd be great.
There you go. Yeah, this is a comedy of errors when you look at how our national debate and national slate system works under both parties. Yeah. We never should have had 14 people standing on the Republican stage. Yeah. That means the party leadership is not vetting these people well enough to get to a stage where there's 2 to 3 choices.
But there's nobody on the left. Who could, if you just could erase all those people there on the Democrat side, who would you pick? There's no leader there.
There's the party is literally in shambles. The hope that I saw for their party, and it's way too socialist for me, was Tulsi Gabbard.
Yep.
I thought that the spine.
But she's a Russian spy, dude.
Yeah, of course she's a Russian spy. and anybody who's not honeymooning in Russia is a Russian spy.
Look! I'm a Russian spy. Look, I can speak Russian just like this. I'm a Russian spy. Don't probe me, please.
You look at Bernie Sanders, and they keep saying that Trump had Russian collusion. Would the Russians rather support someone who vacations in their country or someone who puts sanctions against it?
Well, we just had the report saying they were trying to help out Bernie through social media.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, maybe a little bit of truth could shine through there.
So yeah, I agree. Is Trump weak on anything that the Dems can actually exploit in the upcoming election?
They're going to create their own truth the way they want to. He's a racist, he's xenophobic, he's Islamophobic, he's a misogynist without any proof. They're just going to declare this and bump it home. I love massages. But the thing that will... Their biggest thing going forward to put a chink in the armor is what they're trying to do to the economy. And if there aren't any arrests coming out of the Durham report where prosecutions of real criminals at the highest level are executed, I think the moderates and some in his base are going to say that's a problem.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna have a problem because that was, along with Obamacare, that would be a secondary failure in his promises for the first time around. And some of those were more important than the tax cuts and a couple of the other things. He has delivered on quite a few things that he promised, but Obamacare and the draining of the swamp, in my opinion, was the most important thing.
He's a shrewd guy, so if he's timing this right and everybody is symbiotic with how he wants his timing to go, you will see these indictments coming out of August going into the final stretch into November, and then he's sitting there in a second term where he can't run again, and I say he goes full blown into destroying the health insurance industry the way it is in this country to create free markets so that health costs just plummet for everybody.
Yeah.
If he does that, then he ends up being one of the greatest presidents in recent history.
Frank, why don't you give everybody your social media, where they can find you, what you got coming up on the show, any last minute stuff you want to tell everybody?
Well, you can always find me at undergroundusa.com. I've got the Facebook page. I got a little fledgling page over there called Barbarian Politics, where I can get a little bit more unsettled. I'm waiting for Facebook to yank that. And every Monday and Friday at the ungodly hour of 5 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, I'm on the Captain's America Third Watch with Matt Bruce. That's nationally syndicated through Salem and Genesis. So,
that's great.
What's coming up? Boy, I don't know. I'll see what ticks me off later on this afternoon.
I'm sure something. Well, it's a weekend. They might hide most of it till Monday so they can drive the stock market down even further.
They've done their document dump for this Friday. Everybody's got to go to brunch.
That's right. Frank, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And please come back again.
Anytime and always.
Thanks.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Tune in again next week. Same time, same space, same station.
Resistance